Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be filming my second labour and delivery story, which I'm so excited to film. My baby is currently asleep, she's just there, she's currently 5 weeks old, so I'm a little bit behind with doing this and I have been so excited to film it. So if you don't know who I am, or if you want a recap on my situation, my name is Georgina, I am a mum to two under 2 as well. So my first baby is just 17 months old and then my second baby is just here and she is 5 weeks old. So yeah, I've got a boy and a girl, so Rory, and then this is Ellen. So yeah, first of all, let's just recap a little bit because it has been a long time since I filmed a YouTube video. So this is Ellen, she's 5 weeks old, so that about 3 times now. Her name is pronounced Ellin, not like Ellen, like Ellin. It's a Welsh name, it's also Scandinavian. The reason we came up with it is because Rich is originally from Wales, and we had it as Rory's name because we thought it was a boy's name, so it was on our list with him, and then we realised it's a girl's name, so obviously scrubbed it off, and then we reapproached it when I found out I was having a girl, and I looked into the name and it means light or bright, which I just thought was a really lovely meaning for a name. Yeah, I absolutely love her name, and it was really hard to pick a girl's name. Really hard, because I think with girls you can be a little bit more off the wall and stuff, and I really loved Rory's name, so I wanted a name, oh she's staring, that I felt the same about. So yeah, that's her name. But yeah, also just to kind of give you some background on her, because I haven't really spoken about her on this channel yet, and obviously some of you might not even know that she's been born, but she has, there she is. So yeah, labour and delivery. So if you watched my last labour and delivery story, you will know that it was very emotionally charged. I ended up having a really long labour, it didn't go very well, I wasn't very well prepared, and I ended up having an emergency caesarean, which I also didn't cope very well with. It gave me post-traumatic stress disorder, I felt really kind of traumatised by it, I felt really let down with myself, I had all the emotions that you hear about, like I felt like it was my fault, I felt guilty, I struggled with recovery, I wasn't prepared to be in that much pain postpartum. It just wasn't a great experience. So when I found out I was pregnant again, I was really determined to have a Vbac birth. I was quite open-minded, I did understand the possibilities of having another caesarean. I understood that, you know, things just could go wrong, and also I had some issues with placenta previa through my pregnancy, and there was talk about having an elective caesarean at certain points, so I was open-minded about happening again, but overall I was pretty determined to have a Vbac birth. So just to give some insight on my caesarean situation, because it is kind of relevant to my second labour, so my waters broke with Rory, my waters broke early, he was, I think it was 5 days early when my waters had broken. He was born 4 days early because it went over the next day. So waters broke, then later on in that day, about 4 hours later, contractions started. They started off really close together and not intense, but just always were really close together, which is why a lot of people thought I was further on in labour than I was. They were always like 2-3 minutes apart from the get-go. Yeah, so about 12 hours after my waters were broken, I went into hospital. My contractions were really close together, not overly intense at all, so I just thought I was like dealing with it really well. Went into hospital and I was only 1 centimetre dilated. They let me stay in the hospital because it was quite quiet, and yeah, it took another 12 hours. It took till 5 AM the next day to get to active labour. I then was so tired and so fed up of being in labour for so long, I asked for an epidural, which I had, and then that stopped labour, and I had to be like given like the drugs to make labour continue and progress, which did happen. There were talks at certain points that I was back to back, that Rory was back to back, but it was never confirmed, which I do think now I've had like a vaginal birth, maybe that had happened, because I was in a lot more pain with my birth, with my labour with Rory. The contractions were always way more intense, and I did struggle with it a lot more. Yeah, I always struggled with it a bit more. So they talked about it being back to back, his head just didn't quite feel right. And then yeah, I got to 7 PM that day, so the following day, so this is the 1st of November, and I was given the get-go to push. but it turned out that Rory he was in a mal position basically. So I might get this wrong, but I think you're meant to be, so he would be face down and this part of his head would be showing to come out. But this part of his head was showing and he was facing upwards. So he was essentially stuck, and he just never came down over like the bend. Like when you're in labour they talk about this bend a lot. He never came past this bend, and they only let you push for 2 hours really before they get a doctor involved, and the doctor just decided that cesarean was the best thing to do. So it was never really known whether my epidural had caused it. I do think that played a factor maybe. It was never known whether he was in a bad position from the start or whether he had turned in the birth canal because he had that extra time due to the epidural to do so. And also if you're given like false labour drugs, it tells your body, like it doesn't let your body do what it wants to do, so it could have been twisting him unnaturally because it's not doing what your body naturally wants to do. It was never really decided, but I do think now that he was probably back to back after having a normal labour. That was kind of the outcome of all of the, you know, you have like when you have a traumatic birth, you have meetings afterwards and stuff, and that was kind of the final decision that he was probably back to back from the start, which is why it was always going to be a little bit more difficult to deliver him. And obviously if you're not prepared to be having a back to back one, no one was kind of aware of that situation to give any assistance to help get him out. So yeah, that's the background of that story. And like I said, I didn't really do very well after it and stuff. So anyway, roll on to March 2018. I was due in February, and Ellen went overdue by 5 days, which I really wasn't expecting because Rory was early. Everybody kind of psyched me up that he would be early. I'd had 2 sweeps because with a VBAC birth, they don't want you to go too overdue because obviously it heightens your risks of cesareans and stuff. I found the whole time with my VBAC birth that the medical care was brilliant. Everyone was really supportive of having a VBAC birth. Everyone did everything they could to make sure I had that birth. So I just found that really helpful. Like I said, I had 2 sweeps, did nothing, but I had the sweeps anyway, and I felt like I had control over the situation slightly. Going overdue is horrible. Like it's probably one of the worst things ever, and you just feel so out of control. You feel so fed up, and I went 5 days over. So I just kind of, they booked in a cesarean date for me as well. No, they booked an induction date for me, which was going to be Mother's Day, which was like the following Sunday. So I would have been 11 days overdue, I think. So I just kind of resigned myself to the fact that that was going to happen. I had in my head that the induction was going to fail and I'll be having a cesarean. So in my going 5 days overdue, in fact, the last few weeks of labour, I had so many false starts for labour, so many false contractions. I was in so much pain. Yeah, and I think now these were probably all doing something, like because when I had my sweeps, I was 2 centimetres dilated at one point. So I think they probably were all doing something, but it was just so embarrassing because I would like call Rich home from work, or I would like, I'd tell people that I thought it was happening, like just close friends and family and stuff, and then nothing happened. Everyone is getting fed up with me. I was so fed up. Like I didn't mind going overdue, but I minded being in pain with it too. Like I just wanted something to happen or for nothing to happen. So we were all getting really fed up. So 5 days overdue, I wake up at about 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm having some pretty intense contractions, like all very bearable, but I knew that something was happening, if that makes sense. But I didn't really want to say too much because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd just had all of this snow in America, in England. We'd had so much snow that we were told to stay in. It was really, really intense. So yeah, I was starting to get a little bit worried because I knew that I had to get, like my mum had to get to us to have my first baby, and we also had to get to hospital, and I didn't know what the advice would be from the hospital and stuff. So 3 o'clock in the morning, I kind of wake Rich up. He's not really that interested because he just thinks it's another false start, but it goes on for about 45 minutes. They're 40 seconds long and happening every 3 minutes, so it was really consistent. So yeah, I rang my mum. She starts coming over thinking, like, I thought she'd be a couple of hours by the time she got up, dressed, ready and driven. I thought she'd take about an hour's drive. She only lives 5 minutes away, but I just thought because the snow was so bad, that's what she would do. Literally within about 15 minutes, she's at our house and they're scraping like our pavement and stuff. And I was like, no, everybody calm down. We're not there yet. My first baby wakes up at this point, it's like 5 a.m. So we had to try and deal with him. I just phoned the hospital just to see what their advice was, because I didn't know with the snow they would want you just to come in or what, and they just said to stay at home, which I was really glad to, because I wanted to stay at home for as long as possible. That was always part of my plan, was to stay at home for as long as possible. But everybody was like, they're coming 3 minutes apart and they're 40 seconds, so that's quite intense. But I just kind of knew it was still early days, and I could feel like the hospital said it's probably your cervix coming forward, and I could kind of feel that, like it felt like a dragging, like I could just feel where the pain was really well, and it was like right where my cervix would be, and you could just tell it was lengthening and dragging forward. So I just felt like I had a long time to go. So I went downstairs, my mum and my stepdad left to go get some more rest. My husband put my first baby back to bed and he went back to bed, and I went downstairs and was just kind of rolling around in my birthing ball, drinking Lucozade, eating chocolate, living my best life, watching YouTube. And I was talking to my husband's ex. We get on really well, like they've got children together as well, so she was just kind of talking me through it, taking the mick, saying like, oh, this is another false start, because the kids had to be picked up from us at one point because we had such a false start, and I thought my water's broken and I was in hospital. So yeah, just kind of quite happy, and I got so relaxed that labour stopped again. So I was like, oh, okay, fine, it's stopped, so it's another false start. So I kind of, every time it did that, I just went for a walk around, like did a lap of the house, and it would come back again. But everything was quite consistent, but like there were little breaks where it would be like 7 minutes before I'd have another contraction. So I just felt like we had quite a long time to wait. The battery died and Ellen is now awake, so the hair is up to kind of, yeah, keep her on my shoulder. So I can't remember where I got to, but yeah, it was basically things were like tailing off and then come back, but I was really chilled out. And then obviously by about half past 7, 8 o'clock, my first baby woke up, and again things were still quite slow for a long time. Like the pain wasn't too bad, and I was just remaining really calm. I had been practicing hypnobirthing, or like researching, I'm going to take my head down because it's really annoying me. I've been researching hypnobirthing for my pregnancy. That was something that was really important to me, to try and do that. And although I wasn't like listening to the tracks or anything, and I wasn't really doing the breathing exercises, if that makes sense, I was really conscious of my surroundings. I read the Catherine Graves Hypnobirthing book, and it constantly goes on about your surroundings, making sure they're calm. When you are stressed, the pain is worse, and I was really aware of that. Every time like Rich was getting really flappy, and obviously we still had Rory the toddler, so there were stressful times, and the pain was way worse when it was stressful. So I just did everything I could to remain calm. My mum came back around 10ish, and then Rory had a nap. So yeah, it wasn't really progressing too quickly. The pain was never unbearable. That's a really big point as well. The pain was never, ever, ever unbearable. And then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it was decided that Rory was going to go with my mum. I kept on like hearing, like Rich and my mum were like constantly telling me to go to the hospital because of how close together my contractions were. But I know that if you ring the hospital, they tell you that you can't talk or think through the contractions, and that's when it's the time to go in. And I could still talk through them, so I just didn't feel like it was the right time. So yeah, 3 o'clock it was decided that Rory would go. Oh, that's another thing, I've missed out like a huge part. So about 2 o'clock I went to the toilet, and when I stood up from the toilet, like I noticed that I had a wet patch on the back of my trousers, but like my pelvic floor had got a little bit lazy towards the latter end of pregnancy. So I went to the toilet and I was like, have my waters broken or not? With my first baby, it was like the stereotypical film big flush of water. And yeah, it was like really dramatic and like really funny. So this was like a trickle, so I was like, oh, I'm not sure. I'd had a scare a few days beforehand that I thought my waters had gone, and they hadn't, which was really embarrassing. So I went to the toilet, and then when I stood up there was like a bigger gush, so I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure they have gone. And my mum was like, oh, I don't know, there's not much water there. So I didn't really know, but things after that did progress quite quickly, so they had gone. And also in labour, it was confirmed that they'd gone, because they didn't need bursting or anything. They were coming away as I was pushing. So my water broke about 2:30, then 3 o'clock, that's why mum was like, oh, I'm going to take Rory with me, because you need to go to hospital, basically, which I still didn't go. So 3 o'clock he went, and that was really emotional, like knowing that was the last time I was going to see him as my only baby. And yeah, I found that really hard. He went fine, he wasn't even bothered, but I did find that quite upsetting, and that did make the contractions worse as well. So then he went and I put on Friends, which I knew I was going to do. It was always in my like labour plan that I would watch Friends, because I just, like, the whole time you're practicing hypnobirthing, they talk about like keeping the environment calm, don't watch anything too stressful, you know, watch something light-hearted. And like when I think of that, Friends is the first thing that comes into my head. So I had that in my head that I was going to do that. I was watching the episode where Mike and Phoebe get married, and also I've been really excited all day to have a bath. So I knew that I wanted to do that, but also with the bath I wanted to wait until I was in quite a late stage of labour, because of my first baby. I bathed like pretty much the whole time I was in labour, and it definitely made things slow down a little bit. So I wanted to do it when I was like more active. So before I got in the bath, I kind of thought I was about 4 centimetres dilated. Richard made loads of effort, bless him. He put in like candles, like loads of Yankee candles. He put 3 different ones in there though, so the smell was like really odd. So I was like, blow out the candles. By this point I am getting a little bit like, not snappy but direct, because I think when you're in labour you're just like really to the point. So I was like, blow out the candles. And I got in the bath and he had put lemon drops in the bath, like an essential oil, which like now is stupid for so many reasons, because you're not allowed essential oils in pregnancy. And also if you're like, we didn't know my waters are broken, so you're not allowed to have anything like that around you when your waters are broken due to risk of infection. And I didn't know he'd put the lemon drops in there, so I got in the bath and they started to like really sting my skin. And initially I was like, oh, this is part of the labour pains, like it's obviously just coming. And then my skin like went red raw, so I was like, oh my god, what have you done? And he was like, oh, I put lemon oils in there. Like he was trying to make it really nice and calming. So I had to get out the bath and shower. But when I was in the bath, I knew that I suddenly had the sensation to push. So I knew it was time to go, basically. So I like calmly shouted down to Rich. I was like, please can you just put everything in the car? And I think we were both like, oh no, we've gone wrong, like we've left it way too late. So I did start to panic a little bit, and then the contractions obviously got worse. And by this point I'm freaking out about the car journey because I can't sit down, and this happened in my first labour too. I just could not sit down. The pain was so bad if I sat down. I was dealing with the contractions by being stood up on all 4s. So the thought of sitting in a car, and I would have to be in the car for a while because the snow, even though the hospital, like you can see it from our house, it's like 30 seconds away on a good, like if there were no cars in the thing, it would be like a minute. So yeah, I'm freaking out about the car. One half of me is kind of in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to get in that car, they're going to have to come here because I'm not doing it. And then the other half of me knows that I'm a high risk labour, so I have to get in the car. So we hadn't rang the hospital, we were just being really quick now. He packs the bags, he then has to help me get dressed, and I just cannot even think about putting clothes on. So I tell him to put a dress on me that is a maternity dress, and I put on flip-flops because I thought of putting shoes on or bending down or having to wait any longer to have shoes on. I just didn't want anything on my skin, basically. So we rock up to the hospital, like I'll get to this in a minute. So yeah, I get in the car, and actually it was fine. I didn't have any contractions in the car. By now also, because of this, like the need to push, this is like the time that I had my epidural with my first labour. So I put myself at around 7 centimetres because that's what the pain is. Okay? That's what the pain is kind of close to. So yeah, I was like, I'm about 7 centimetres, so now is a good time to go to hospital. And then when I got in the car, I didn't have any contractions at all, like luckily. So I was like, oh, I'm probably about 4 then, because that was quite a big chunk of time I didn't have one. So I got to the hospital, we literally like pull up outside, there's like a drop-off bay, and obviously I'm like, you cannot let me walk on my own, you have to show me up, and Rich would never let me walk up on my own anyway, but I was freaking out about the thought of having to walk up on my own. So he pulls up, there's snow everywhere, I get out of the car in a dress and flip-flops, like looking like a mad woman. I'm quite clearly in quite intense labour by this point because I am really starting to show it, and like I'm doing the whole like brewing like a donkey and making all these noises. We get in the lift, bless her, with the girl who was probably about 24 weeks pregnant. and I think she must have been going in for monitoring or an appointment like that or something, and I think I scared the shit out of her because I'm there like swinging on the thing, and she was meant to be seen first, but clearly I was priority. So we walk into the corridor and I bump into a midwife who is like, have you rang? I'm like, no, like, no. And yeah, it's pretty intense at this point, but I still thought I was about 4 centimetres in my head because of the timing of the contractions. So she shows me into a room, this midwife who is lovely. Her name is Lily. She is the reason that Ellen is called Ellen Lily. Lily's Ellen's middle name. She's so nice, and I was so glad that we just happened to bump into her at that time, because she was actually going somewhere to do other jobs. She wasn't supposed to be doing labours, so I'm so glad that we bumped into her because she was amazing. So she's into a room, she's trying to talk to me, and I can't really talk anymore. And I remember just thinking I'm about 4 centimetres, so she left to go and get some bits and bobs. And I said to, like, made a mental note. I didn't actually say it, but I thought I had said it, but I made a mental note to say to Rich, I need to have the epidural. And I really didn't want to have the epidural because it played such a big factor in my last labour kind of failing with the cesarean. So I felt really annoyed at this point. I felt like I needed the epidural, but I just felt like the pain was so intense. I had the same feelings on my first labour, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't go any longer. So anyway, that's where all my headspace was at. So Lily comes back in and Rich says he's going to go move the car because obviously it's left in the drop-off bay where you get a ticket. And Lily turns around to him and says, you need to run because your wife's about to have a baby. So we were both like, what? And she's like, you're there, you're about to have this baby. So yeah, that was amazing. And we get like, I don't know, the second she said it, it was like I had this permission, because obviously I thought it was about 4 centimetres, so I know I'm not allowed to push, I'm not allowed to do anything. So the second she said it, I was like, oh my God, yes, like of course I'm 10 centimetres dilated. Like I don't know how I didn't realise that, because I'm desperate to push this baby out. So yeah, I got to hospital and I was 10 centimetres, and she said that my body had already started pushing it out in the corridor. I just can't believe this at this point, because obviously completely different labours, to go from being 1 centimetre by the time I reached hospital with my first baby and getting to 10 centimetres for my second was just insane. So Rich literally runs and he says by the time he gets back I'm on the bed with gas and air trying to push the baby out. I had asked for gas and air. She had said that she doesn't think I should have it, I should just listen to what my body wants to do, but I just kind of felt like, just for support, I wanted it. I didn't really use it too much. With gas and air, to really get into it, you have to like be taking big puffs and your head zones out and you feel like having like an outer body experience. And I didn't realise that I wasn't really using it, I was just kind of biting on it and not really, I wasn't inhaling it, I was just kind of breathing with it, if that makes sense. So it was taking the edge off slightly, but not really. And then when I was pushing, I wasn't using it, I would like throw it on the floor, like I was so dramatic. I'd just throw it away, and then like when I was in between pushes, I'd be like, where's it gone? And I would just use it again to bite down on, really. But the most amazing thing happened, which is just insane. So I hadn't really thought during early labour that the hypnobirthing had gone in. I thought maybe I'd just not paid attention enough, or it was a bit of a con or a bit of a fad, because it's just nothing, I don't know, it just wasn't really doing anything. So yeah, I just decided that it was, I don't know, it wasn't what it was in my head. But in labour, like honestly, it was so weird and I can't describe it. My body just did everything for me and there was no pain. Like it was intense. Like I can't really describe it, and Rich doesn't really believe it, but I just didn't feel pain. Like I just felt intense. Like everything felt exhausting and tiring, and I obviously didn't want to be doing it, but it wasn't painful, it was just intense. My body was like going into positions that I wasn't telling it to do. Like I wasn't saying to my brain, do this or do that. My body was just doing it, and it would be so much more comfortable. And like at one point I was like rotating my hips and they were saying that was bringing the baby down, and I wasn't saying to do that. My body was just doing it, like, and it felt like I could feel where the baby was at all points. It's so weird, I can't describe it, but like it just felt like my body knew, obviously my body knows where the baby is, but it knew, right, the baby's here and this is there, so you need to do this to get the baby around that bit. And it was so odd, like I had no say in it, I wasn't being instructed what to do. They didn't even know if I was like fully dilated. They never did like a cervical check, they just kind of looked and could see what was going on. yeah, it was so bizarre, I can't describe. And like I would like go onto the top of the bed, I was on all fours because that's a big thing that you're told to do in the hypnobirthing book, and I just kind of did that naturally. I was on the bed like holding onto the top, and then every time I push I'd like crawl down to the bottom and like squat, like really squat. It's so glamorous. And like really like get into like this ball, and I would like push and push and push. But my body was just doing it, and it was like, I can't describe it, but even like the noises in my head were like telling me what to do, if that makes sense. And it's really odd as well. So with hypnobirthing, you're told to like visualize this place for when you're in labour. And they say like maybe like your wedding day, or like a holiday you really enjoyed, or a happy place. And my place was Phoebe and Mike wedding from Friends. Whenever things were like really intense, it would just come on like a telly, like it would just, I wouldn't even think about it, it would just flick to their wedding, and it like takes your, I don't know, it must trigger something in your brain to like make things, it must trigger endorphins, I don't know. So yeah, it was just insane, and I cannot recommend hypnobirthing enough. It was so crazy. But anyway, that's like the bulk of the majority of labour. So I was pushing for 2 hours, and as I said before, you can't really go any longer than 2 hours before something starts to like, something's not right basically. And I knew we were getting a little bit that way because I knew I'd been pushing for a really long time. I knew from my first labour and this labour, everyone starts off really encouraging, and then their tone of voice changes, and Rich's tone of voice changed, and he could tell things were slow and things weren't, he could see her but she wasn't coming out quick enough and stuff. Yeah, so I just knew, and I started to lose a bit of motivation. I started to get a little bit nervous, and I just felt like my babies get stuck. So Rory got stuck, basically. That's how that was decided. He got stuck at a point, he couldn't come down anymore. And yeah, I said the whole time, I've got, you know, maybe a dodgy pipe. My mum, she had 2 assisted deliveries. We were both on 2, so me and my brother. So I used to joke that like she'd given me dodgy pipes, like hereditary and stuff. So yeah, hang on a second, let me just feed her a minute. So I started to just lose enthusiasm, and I was getting a bit nervous, and I started to like, it was like my body again was telling me something isn't right and you need to do something here and you need to try and take control. So my thoughts were, I'm going to ask for a cesarean, because I'd always said with my Vbac thing that if I have to have a cesarean, I kind of want it to be as early as possible so I don't get tired, and also I want it to be as in control as I can be. So in my head, hang on, let me just feed you. There you go. So in my head I was like, if you make the call then it's your control and you will feel better about it. So I kept on asking for one, and the midwife and Rich were like, no, you don't need to do that, don't be silly. So the doctor was called in. Oh, and also the midwives were really trying to help, like motivate me, so they got me up walking around. I had to sit on the toilet at one point to try and like see if that position would help. They kept on like telling me things about the baby, like she had loads of hair, and they asked Rich to get her clothes out. Like they were really trying to spur me on, you could just tell. But I just kind of wasn't really having it at this point. I was just tired, and I thought in my head, like they kept on saying, oh, you're tired. I was like, I'm not tired, like I can't do it. Yeah, and obviously I just was tired. So the doctor came in, and this is the doctor that had booked in my induction to, so it was nice to see like a friendly face. Do you want anything? And he said that he was going to do a forceps delivery and an episiotomy. And at this point, there were so many things I was thinking. Like I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to be stitched. I don't know. I think I'd heard from my friend Maisie, who is Love Maisie, by the way, on YouTube. I swear I'd heard that she had said that the stitches are worse than the labour. So I was like, I don't want to have stitches. I'm not doing that. That would be horrendous. And yeah, I was just dead against it. But then, yeah, things got really intense. He said to me that this is the best thing to do, but that I have 3 pushes, 3 shots to get the baby out, or whether it be emergency cesarean. And by the way, I'd had the gas and air taken off me about 20 minutes before this, and I had to wait another 20 minutes to get the gas and air completely out of my system, because the 3 pushes had to be 100% me thinking, pushing, really intense. To be honest, I feel like the doctor did more of the work in these 3 pushes because I don't... Oh, you've been sick everywhere. I don't really feel like I was quite there, if that makes sense, which is really sad to say now. But I don't know, maybe I was there because I was given a lot of things to hold on to, and I definitely kind of screamed. So I probably did give it my best shot. What happened at this point is really odd. So I'd been really calm the whole labour, like really calm, really in the zone, just kind of doing my own thing. With my first labour, I was crazy calm. Obviously I had an epidural, so it's a bit different. I was really calm, and by this point, I was like a freaking animal. Like, I was screaming, I was shouting, ow! I'd stopped having contraction noise. My contraction noises were like, ooh, ooh. But by this point, I was like screaming, ow. I could see everything. I saw him cut me. I saw him put in the first forcep. That was the worst thing because the pain I knew from the first forcep, and then you know they're gonna put another one in. So it's all very intense because you can see what's happening, and you can see, like, basically you can see what's happening, so you know what's coming, so you tense up and you like freak out, and that's what I was doing. Also he inspected the baby's head at one point, and oh my god, the pain of that was insane. You know the game Operation where you like touch the sides and like this alarm bell goes off? It was basically like the second he made contact with her head, it was like this alarm went off my head, and it was so painful. I like literally screamed, ow. I'm being completely honest by the way, because I had a lovely labour, but this part is how it was, so I have to be honest about it because I don't want to freak anyone out. That's what I'm always really scared about, is I never want to freak people out with labour because it doesn't have to be that way. I had, like, my delivery with Ellen is technically on paper like a traumatic birth, but it was lovely. Like, I'm so in love with my labour story, so I'm just telling you this as honestly as possible because it doesn't have to be traumatic, even though it is a bit traumatic. So yeah, and I did my 3 pushes, and by this point I'm just like, this isn't working, it's not working, and I think I shouted like, I want a cesarean, I want a cesarean. And at this point Rich went, George, she's here, like, look down, she's here, you've done it. And she's on me, like this big purple alien is on my belly, and it's so weird because Rory was obviously, he came out beautiful coloured, he came out wrapped in a blanket and had a hat and a towel on, and he was just a baby dressed. Well, she comes out purple, covered in white stuff, cord is all over me, like, it was completely different. And yeah, it was amazing. I did go into like shock, I would say, and I was a bit freaked out by her. She came out furious, like she was so cross. And I don't blame her because I would be cross too. But yeah, she came out really angry, so she was really having a bit of a head fit. She's got a stick on my shoulder. Yeah, she wasn't very happy, and I did go into like a slight shock. I think the adrenaline really hit me hard, but it was amazing. But at this point, like I said, I'm in shock. So I think I said to Rich, that was the stuff of horror scenes. Like, I was really upset, really pissed off by what had just happened. And then obviously I knew the stitches were coming, and I think that was the worst part, is I knew it wasn't over. I had to deliver the placenta, and I knew that there was gonna be more pain. So I was given back the gas and air, but the stitches were really painful, like, I can't lie. And it never really occurred to me at any point that I could speak up, because obviously nobody else knew it was painful, and I just put up with it, if that makes sense. I did have gas and air, and I did go on a crazy high. I'll talk about that in a minute. But it never occurred to me that I could say, do you know what, I need something else because I'm still feeling this and it's not right. And I was having quite a few stitches. I never really found out what type of tear or cut I had or how many stitches. But I was having them for quite a long time. But yeah, I had so much gas and air. I was really going to town on the gas and air, to the point that I was like, in my head, I was spinning around the room, and I was having like full control. Like, it was really bizarre. Like, I definitely had like a trip, if that makes sense. So that's how I knew I wasn't really using the gas and air properly in actual labour. And technically, I think they said, like, because you didn't have gas and air like for the majority of it, like, it was pretty good going. So yeah, so had the stitches, and then had Ellen back and breastfed her, and then obviously the midwife had to clean up the room. And by this point I'm on freaking cloud 9. Like, my stitches have been done, I've had like this big massive pain relief pessary stuck in my bum, which made everything better. And yeah, I'm eating Haribo, and oh my god, like, it was just so funny. The midwife's cleaning up bits of blood and placenta from the floor, and I just found it hilarious. Like, I just felt so proud of myself. So, like, I just couldn't believe that I did a forceps delivery, got cut, had no pain relief. I think they do inject you like with numbing stuff for the forceps delivery. Like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, the differences in my labour. Like, I got fully dilated at home, all by myself. That I was so proud of already. Then I'd gone from having, like, my first baby, I'd had, like, the best pain relief you could have. Like, obviously, I'd had the most intense one. So I felt nothing. To having gas and air and barely having gas and air because I didn't do it properly, and then didn't have it for, like, the most intense part. So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about, I don't know, I had so many visions of how I would tell this story and what my point would be. But obviously I need to tell the story because I do, like, that's the fun of YouTube. But I kind of want to talk to you about, if you had a traumatic first labour, then just know that when they say no to babies, no to pregnancies, no to labours are the same, that's so true. My pregnancy is completely more different. Rory was early, he was a boy, Ellen was a girl and she was overdue, very different already. Rory got to hospital at 1 centimetre dilated, had an epidural, had a cesarean. Ellen got to hospital at 10 centimetres dilated, had barely any pain relief and had a natural birth. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about it because I know how freaky birth is, and if you had a bad experience, don't be scared of birth again because it might not be the same. And there are things that you can do to kind of, like, knowledge is power. With Rory and my labour, I was like, I've got no birth plan because I'm just going to go with the flow, and whatever needs to happen will happen, which I think was quite a sensible thing to do with your first baby. I think going in there with a really strict birth plan isn't going to work. With Ellen, I researched all different types of birth. I had said I wanted a water birth, but I had no chance of that happening after I arrived at hospital at 10 centimetres dilated. Yeah, and I researched hypnobirthing, did loads of hypnobirthing stuff. Cannot recommend that enough. If you, honestly, even if it's your first labour, just look at hypnobirthing. Even if you don't believe in it, it just is really interesting, like, just for insight into labour, doing different things that will help you with labour, so different positions. It talks about all the stages of labour, so you have an understanding whilst you're going through it. It talks about just keeping things calm, which, even if you don't believe in hypnobirthing, just staying calm during labour makes so much difference to the pain. It's unbelievable. It's so much worse when you're not calm. It's just way more intense. So yeah, I definitely recommend hypnobirthing, more specifically the Catherine Graves hypnobirthing book. If you don't want to read it, you can get it on Amazon, like the audio book. I'll link it all down below. There are loads of YouTube videos, but I would recommend probably doing like a book or like a set structure, because I find YouTube videos quite hard to pick up, and then you don't, like, you miss lots of stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it really, and just how I got my natural birth, and just how amazing it feels and how lovely it is. The recovery also is so much better. It was so weird, like, afterwards they were like, oh, do you want to have a shower? And I was like, can I? Like, yeah, because with this cesarean you've got to wait like 24 hours afterwards, maybe less than that, but you do have to wait quite a long time before you can have a shower. You know, I could walk around the ward, I could take myself to the toilet, didn't have to have a catheter in, I could look after my baby. That was the weirdest thing as well. Like, I instantly got hospitalised. I went down to the ward and I was like, oh god, I've got to get up and get this, and I have to call somebody because I can't get up, because I just went back into like cesarean recovery mode where I was like stuck in a bed, and I was like, oh no, I could just get up and get out. I'll just do that myself. So yeah, recovery was much better. Having a toddler and having the recovery is much better. So yeah, just a completely different birth story. So I wanted to share it with you and share my positive birth story. I still can't believe that I have a positive birth story to tell, especially after just being so traumatised over Rory and how he was born and stuff, and just being so tearful about it for so long and so upset by it. It feels amazing to now be one of those girls that has not only a positive birth story, but one of those like really irritating birth stories where you're like, yeah, got to hospital 10 centimetres dilated, didn't even realise. I just feel so proud of myself, so proud of us, and just, yeah, really want to share how it doesn't have to always be bad. Birth can be beautiful. I'm actually upset that I will never give birth again, because Ellen is my last baby for sure. But I do wish I could give birth again because I enjoyed it so much. But yeah, any questions, please do leave me a comment, and please do subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a big thumbs up and share it also with somebody if they have had a bad birth experience, or if they're looking into hypnobirthing or any of those things. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.